Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. I guess the big news this week, it's all about Ubisoft again, isn't it? So, in the extremely unlikely event that you don't know what it is that I'm actually talking about, Ubisoft just announced that they're basically shit-canning a whole bunch of studios and game projects. Although they only specifically named one game project, and that was Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. The news that this has been shit-canned is probably not going to come as a great surprise to most people. It was announced in 2020, and it was supposed to come out in 2021. Quick check of the calendar reveals that it's currently running 5 years late, so the fact that it eventually got shit-canned is probably not terribly surprising. The cuts do not stop with Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, however. It's one of 6 games that Ubisoft have cancelled, 4 of which were previously unannounced. They're also shutting down game studios left, right and centre, making cuts right across the board. And for those unfortunate Ubisoft workers who haven't lost their jobs as a result of this, my favourite word they used was right-sizing, not downsizing, not unemployment. No, they're right-sizing. Oh, couldn't make this shit up. They're making working conditions even worse. It's just a fantastic time to be working for Ubisoft. What do you mean, Jingles? Allow me to elaborate. In a note to the few full-time remaining employees that Ubisoft still have, the following was said. To support the effective implementation and operation of this new model, the group also intends to return to 5 days per week on-site for all teams. End quote. So if you cast your mind back to 2020, when the pandemic was getting its teeth into everything and everybody started working from home instead, and it turned out to actually be massively successful. It turned out that if people don't have dickhead managers breathing down their necks 24 hours a day and demanding meetings instead of actually getting the work done, productivity shoots up. Job satisfaction increases across the board. People actually start enjoying their jobs. The problem is the managers didn't like it because people started asking awkward questions like, why exactly do we need so many of you? And so Ubisoft have gone back to the old 9-to-5 grind if you want to continue working for Ubisoft. Those few Ubisoft employees who haven't already been fired as a result of last week's restructuring, which of course is making all the managers happy because now they can have lots of meetings, the practical alternative to actually getting your work done. Now all the middle managers and team leaders will actually have people working in the same building that they can demand their TPS reports from, and people will stop asking those awkward questions like, why do we need so many of you again? But it's the corporate doublespeak and bullshit language that this note was presented in that is utterly hilarious, and some of the finest example of this sort of thing that I have read in recent memory. Remember, I am not making any of this up, right? I'm going to read you exactly what the wording of this note was, explaining why everybody had to stop being actually productive and enjoying their jobs and come back to the office 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Are you ready for this? Remember, I'm not making any of this up. This evolution is intended to strengthen collaboration, including constant knowledge sharing and the collective dynamic across teams. In-person collaboration is a key enabler of collective efficiency, creativity, and success in a persistently more selective AAA market. Now, if you didn't understand anything that I just said, if you heard words that were recognisable as English, but when strung together in that way didn't actually seem to make an awful lot of sense, don't worry, it's not you. You're not actually really supposed to understand it. It's the kind of language that's deliberately structured to sound impressive while saying very, very little. Because if you were to understand what they were saying, you might actually be able to argue with it. Although one sentence in particular I found amazingly funny. Right at the end there, where they said they were doing all of this to create success in a persistently more selective AAA market. Yeah, because Ubisoft knows what it takes to create success in a selective AAA market, don't they? The company that haven't had a successful game in 15 years know exactly what it takes to create success in a more selective AAA market. Although it's Ubisoft, surely it should be a quadruple A market. No, wait, hold on. Ubisoft are the only ones who claim to be making quadruple A titles. Remember Skull and Bones? The world's first quadruple A game title? That might have lost Ubisoft as much as $600 million. You couldn't make this shit up. Well, the day after Ubisoft made this announcement, the day after they announced that they wanted to kill all creativity and worker satisfaction by forcing everybody to come back to the office 9 to 5, 5 days a week, the day after Yves Guillemot, who inexplicably, despite 15 years of unmitigated failure, has managed to cling on to leadership at the head of this company, the day after this clown shoe announces a fundamental shake-up to his company's internal studio structure, the cancellation of 6 projects, including the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake, and for some reason a promise that more player-facing generative AI was on the way, because that's what we want, isn't it? That's what we've all been demanding, more generative AI in our games. I mean, you know, that's how you create success in an ever more selective AAA market. The day after making all of these announcements, would you believe this clown shoe was astonished that his company's shares literally fell off a cliff and lost 34% of their value in a single day? The worst Ubisoft share prices have been in 14 years. Because I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised in the slightest. And yet, while I do love nothing more than to sit here and poke fun at Yves Guillemot in particular and Ubisoft in general, it might actually be the right thing for them to do. I know, but hear me out. They clearly needed to do some kind of restructuring because they've got their fingers in so many unprofitable pies at the moment. Something clearly had to go. The problem is, you've got the same idiot clown shoes still in charge who got them into this disastrous situation in the first place. So yeah, maybe cuts need to happen. Maybe changes do need to be made. But do you trust any of these idiots to know what cuts need to happen and what changes need to be made? I mean, their track record over the last 15 years hasn't exactly been stellar. There's a reason why Ubisoft's share price is sitting in the toilet right now. And then you've got the announcement of the whole Return to the Office initiative. But then I started thinking, you know, this might actually not be quite as unbelievably stupid as it sounds. Because if you didn't want to announce mass layoffs, and you just wanted to encourage people to quit, this would be a good way of doing it. Constructive dismissal, I believe they call it, where they don't actually fire you, they just make life at the company so bad that people are encouraged to investigate alternate means of employment. This, however, while it would make sense, would require a degree of intelligence on behalf of Ubisoft's leadership that I just don't believe they possess. It's likely that Hanlon's razor applies here. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Maybe they really just are that stupid. Anyway, in other news, the actor Ron Perlman's come about in Fallout. Now, after hearing this announcement, you all probably fall into one of several different groups. The first one being, you don't give a shit. and that's okay, but bear with me, hear me out, because there's a little bit of trivia coming up here that I thought was kind of amusing. Assuming that you do give a shit and you didn't know that Ron Perlman was coming back to Fallout, yeah, it's been announced that he's going to be playing, and I quote, the super mutant in the second season of the Fallout TV show. Well, I say playing, the super mutant's going to be a CG character because it's a super mutant. But it's been voiced by Ron Perlman. And, well, this is where we get to the whole coming back to Fallout thing, because it wouldn't be surprising if many of you had no idea that Ron Perlman had any kind of connection to Fallout in the first place. But he did. And by coincidence, it was also voice work. You have to go back a few years, though. Like, a lot. Like, all the way back to the original Fallout. Ask yourself the question, what is it that Fallout is most famous for? War. War never changes. It's been in the intro of every Fallout game since Interplay did the original nearly 30 years ago now. War never changes. That one line from the intro of every Fallout game that there has ever been since the first game is so embedded, it is so connected in our heads with the Fallout series. It's like in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. It's so embedded in our collective consciousness with Warhammer 40,000. It's the same thing with War Never Changes and Fallout. And those words were recorded by Ron Perlman nearly 30 years ago for apparently $40 and a sandwich. He claims that's what he was paid. And now he's back in the Fallout TV show doing the voice acting for the Super Mutant. The funny thing is, he had absolutely no idea that the franchise had become as big as it was. He was aware that there was a Fallout TV show. He was not aware that it was related at all, that it had any connection whatsoever to the voice work that he did for this shitty little Interplay game nearly 30 years ago. He was actually asked to come back and do the intro for Fallout 2. Year and a half after he did the first one, he gets a phone call. They said, "Hey, do you remember Fallout?" He said, "No." They said, "Well, there's a second one." He said, he may have been taking the piss out of the interviewer, but he claims that when he was told that there was a second Fallout game, he said, "Why?" They said, "Well, the first one was really successful. It went through the roof, so they want you to come back and do the intro again for the second one." He had no idea it was going to be as big as it was. But either way, he is the guy who did the War Never Changes line for the intro of basically every Fallout game there has ever been. And he's back in Season 2 of the TV show, again doing voice work for the Super Mutant. It may or may not have already aired. I don't know, I haven't actually watched the second season. But there you go, a little bit of gaming trivia for you. In other news, more directly gaming related this time, Into the Dead just did another... I mean, they just keep pushing out huge updates. Just yesterday, I published an Into the Dead video showing the first potential resolution of the Spill Zone update that came out not long before Christmas. I still have to carry on from, well, not from where that one left off, but backtrack a bit and then show you the other ending to Spill Zone. And in the time since I recorded that video, they've pushed out another 2 updates. One with a new morale and relationship system between all of the survivors, and another huge update just a couple of weeks ago with yet another escape plan, multiple new locations, multiple new characters that you can play and recruit, and 2 fresh, entirely different endings to the game. This is what an early access title should be like. Regular updates, real content, and not the kind of abandonware that unfortunately so many early access titles end up being. And it's reasons like this that are the major motivators for me to be getting into so many indie games lately. Games like Into the Dead, games like The Last Caretaker, The Lift, Starcom, Unknown Worlds, games like that, where, unlike for example pretty much everything that companies like Ubisoft have squatted out for the last 15 years, the game is not designed by a committee of DEI hires. And you can tell. You can see the effort that's been put into these titles. Not always successfully. Just being passionate about something is no guarantee of quality. Sometimes you're just not very good. And that's true of indie titles. As much as it is true of AAA titles. There's a lot of indie titles come out on Steam that sink without trace and never even make back their registration fee in sales. And my focus this year, in 2026, on indie titles rather than the usual stuff that I publish. I mean, it is a gamble in more than one way. It's always a gamble anytime I feature a new game because I can never predict what's going to be a success and what isn't. I mean, there have been games that I thought were going to be massively popular that just weren't. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is probably the best example, although there have been others, and there will continue to be others. But I mean, amazingly good game, multiple awards, solid development team, might get 10 to 12,000 views every time I put a video up. And again, it's a similar pattern to what's occurred in the past. The people that do watch those videos are massively passionate about them. They absolutely love them. But so many of you don't watch them. And then on the other hand, I can pick up a small, single developer produced indie title that I like, and maybe it'll resonate with you guys, and then it just straight out of the gate, everybody loves it. Games like Choo Choo Charles and Starcom. It's impossible to predict what you guys are going to like and what you're not going to like. But what this new focus on indie titles is making abundantly clear is just how many of you, and I realise that addressing this subject in Mingles with Jingles is a complete waste of time, because the kind of people who need to hear this aren't watching Mingles with Jingles, but it is becoming abundantly clear how many of you only turn up for World of Tanks or World of Warships. Because since I started making the changes to the stuff that I'm publishing, on the days when you would normally see a World of Tanks or a World of Warships video, and there isn't because I'm doing Starcom or The Last Caretaker, there's always the same comment: where's World of Tanks? Where's World of Warships? And if you listen to Mingles with Jingles, you wouldn't be asking those questions, would you? But, again, there are so many people, and this is why it's a big risk for me to do this, to have this 2026 focus on indie titles at the cost of the stuff that I normally do. Because I am going to lose views. I am going to lose subscribers. Well, I already know that I am, because I can see the numbers on my YouTube creator dashboard, and they're not going up. But I do feel like it's worth it, even if it's going to cost me subscribers and views in the short term. Because, I felt like I was getting into a rut. Same shit, week in, week out. No room for... It's going to sound weird saying this. I was going to say no room for creative expression. I'm not the one doing anything creative. People making the games that I'm talking about are the creative ones. But you understand what I mean. And I also feel like that the viewer engagement with the indie titles is just so much better than with the World of Tanks or the World of Warships videos, because there's so many of you out there who just don't play those games anymore, but they still hang around for the videos in the hopes that they might see something interesting or amusing. But with the indie titles, with the not World of Tanks and not World of Warships stuff, it's like everybody who's there loves what they're watching, and I just find that so much more satisfying to create videos for. So I hope you like the new direction the channel's taking, because I've got bad news if you don't. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. And on that bombshell, I guess that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. And I hope that the upcoming week isn't going to suck too much. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.